corporations in the United States of America in order to form a more profitable union, establish consumer dependence, ensure domestic servability, promote the general stock share, and secure the blessings of an unregulated labor market for our shareholders, and to the benefit of our balance sheets, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the former United States, now rebranded as the United Corporations of America. Of course, that's not how the preamble of the Constitution currently reads, but I think it's fair to say that it certainly captures the spirit of the individuals who put a ballot measure on this November, Proposition 32, and it underpins the philosophy in the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United versus the FEC, and captures the animating spirit of over 3 decades of assaults on working people in California and the nation as a whole. Mike and I are going to attempt to frame Prop 32 for you. How many people here have already been in information sessions or heard about Prop 32? Great. The very few that have not, will talk about what it entails, and then put it into a context and talk. Mike's going to show you exactly what the campaign for Yes is beginning to look like, how powerful that campaign is, and how deceptive. So for those of you, the few who have not heard what Prop 32 is, how it reads, it requires unions to receive express permission from its membership, each individual member, before it uses any dues collected for political purposes. This permission has to be renewed annually. It's a little bit like having a party. Telling people you need an RSVP, it needs to be notarized, and they need to renew that every 2 hours during the party. It's not surprising that such an onerous, such a deceptive and destructive proposition came from the Lincoln Club of Orange County. They were, in fact, one of the principal donors to another important and the tectonic change in campaign finance in the nation, that being Citizens United. They were one of the principal donors for the film Hillary, which the showing of which was challenged in the Supreme Court. It was prevented from being shown during the 2008 primaries under McCain-Feingold. McCain-Feingold, as you know, tried to implement meager provisions to stem the tide of independent expenditures and campaigns. The Supreme Court took the case. Not only did they reverse McCain-Feingold, they went much, much further. They ruled that campaign expenditures, money, in effect, equates to speech. They went further. They said under the First Amendment of the Constitution, speech cannot be restricted by the government. And they ruled that corporations, as collections of individuals, had the same rights as corporeal individuals. At this point in time, fictitious persons, corporations, now have the same First Amendment rights that you and I do, but they have an unlimited purse. They have the ability to bring millions and millions and billions of dollars to bear on campaigns across the country. Justice Kennedy, writing for the majority, went so far as to say, government has muffled the voices of corporations, the best advocates of the most important interests of our economy. Campaign finance reform experts have pointed out this ruling comes on the heels of the 2004 and 2008 campaigns, when progressive activists such as ourselves were able to leverage the internet to begin to aggregate small donations into an effective political fighting force. This is nothing more than an attempt to reverse the power that was beginning to accumulate among average American citizens. Citizen sovereigns are being replaced by conglomerates. Labor is again under attack. This represents 3 decades where we turned our values upside down and decided we would invest in the wealthy in the form of tax cuts and deregulation of corporations while cutting back on government services for working Americans. The first 30 years after World War II, the labor was a viable, more viable, powerful force in this country. Production doubled, but workers' salaries doubled with it. In the last 30 years, production doubled again. Workers' salaries have remained stagnant or declined, while the wages of the top 1% have doubled. While the top 1% has accumulated more wealth than the bottom 90%. While the richest 400 have accumulated over $1.5 trillion. What will happen under Citizens United when this level of wealth is brought to bear into campaigns? Which legislators will stand up to corporate interests, and will they survive the next election cycle? Michael's going to show you a couple of the most important messaging that we've seen coming out of the Yes on 32 campaign to give you a sense of what seemed to be a slam dunk no vote and the potential that it could actually pass, which is very high at this moment.
Hi, I'm besides being vice chair of the caucus, I'm a media guy. So this thing is, can you all hear me okay? Speaking of media. So this thing is very interesting to me. What I'm interested in is how something is framed, or in other words, how it's branded. So I'm going to ask some rhetorical questions that I'll answer myself to make it easier for everybody. How is it being branded right now? Okay, well, if you give it any thought, you know that the branding on this particular proposition is that it limits unions from taking money from paychecks, and it limits the corporations from taking money away from paychecks to use for political purposes, which sounds really fair, and I'm sure you've all heard this before, but of course the big lie in that is that corporations have never taken money out of paychecks. So the other thing that I've noticed is that so far all of the framing has been silent on labor. This has come up twice in the past. Susan, you know when it's come up, right? 1995? I don't know. It's come up twice in the past, and it's been framed as basically taking power away from unions. Yeah.
1998 at Proposition 226 and 2005 at Proposition 95.
Okay. Both times it failed because it was basically framed as an anti-union measure. This time there is no mention of unions in the framing other than the fact that they can't take money out of your paychecks. But it isn't an anti-union movement. These guys, the other side, as we'll call them, have gotten very smart. And I'm going to show you a couple spots that you're going to see on television, no doubt. But I'd like you to do something first. What I'd like you to do is forget everything you know about this bill. Can you do that? I know that I'm pretty good about it. So pretend like you know nothing about this bill. I'm going to show some spots.
Definition: bribe. Money or favor given or promised in order to influence the judgment or conduct of a person in a position of trust. In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, this is the definition of bribe. California politicians call it a campaign contribution. That's right. Under current law, government contractors can give campaign contributions to the same politicians who will vote to spend our tax dollars and hire that contractor. Politicians call them campaign contributions. Bribe is a better description. Voting yes on the Stop Special Interest Money initiative ends this practice. It bans contractors who do business with state and local governments from giving money to the politicians who decide on their contracts. Let's redefine politics as usual, stop pay to play, and start taking back control of California by voting yes to Stop Special Interest Money now.
Did anyone find anything in that spot that's offensive that you wouldn't agree with? No, it's very well done. These are bad guys. They didn't mention labor unions, did they? Okay, let me show you one more spot. This one, I think, is even more interesting.
Our political system in California is broken. The big special interests give millions of dollars in campaign contributions to politicians, and then the politicians vote the way the special interests tell them. The politicians work for the special interests. Here's just one example. According to the LA Times, since 2006, AT&T has spent $14,000 per day on political advocacy. In 2010, AT&T contributed $760,000 to 98% of all state legislative races to make sure the politicians vote their way. Now AT&T is calling in its favors. They and their high-priced lobbyists are pushing a law that would allow them to disconnect the lower-profit home phone service of California seniors and low-income citizens who depend on that service to communicate. The direct line between big corporations like AT&T and our state politicians needs to be disconnected. The Stop Special Interest Money Now initiative will break the big money tie between special interests and politicians by allowing only individuals, not special interests, to contribute to campaigns. It's time to stop the special interests by supporting the Stop Special Interest Money initiative. To learn more, visit www.stopspecialinterestmoney.org and let's start taking back control of California.
Okay, now remembering that you have forgotten everything you know about this bill, how would you vote?
I don't like AT&T, so I consider it.
Yeah, I'm on the same thing as a media guy. AT&T is one of the evils. I have a feeling, and I haven't done the research, AT&T may well have even paid for it. Because there's no mention of labor unions. It's what they've clearly done is they've gone to focus groups, they found what do people not like, and that's what they put in the spot. And this is what we are up against. So as you head out of here this evening, as you go to bed or as you drive home, think about this. If this campaign wins, think about the campaigns you've worked on for the candidates that you like, for the progressive candidates you like, for the issues you like. What would they be like without labor money? And the answer is, I think, this is my opinion, and I think you probably will agree, I think it'll be the end of the two-party system. I think what we will end up with is two parties, one of them named the Republicans, one of them named the Democrats, and both of them wholly owned by corporations. So that's our presentation on this particular issue.